I want to start with Aiden Park. Obviously, it was a pretty funny moment to finish off.
Yeah.
He's still at the arena. He's in his sweatshirts and shorts. Just, what did you think of that?
Great
Fact that he was
story.
there.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot he was from California. I knew that I didn't know if he'd be at the draft, but when the crowd started cheering and he had a big smile on his face, that was great. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, but when we finish this, I'm going to go call all the prospects.
What did you like about him, or what did you guys discuss? Like, obviously, it's a bit of a flyer, but what did you like about him?
Oh, he's a great offensive player. I think he had a really big year this year in Green Bay, and he's been a big scorer his whole career, like going back to when he was at Shattuck. So I've been aware of him for a while, and I think he's one of those guys that, for whatever reason, was passed over. But now you look at what he was able to do in a good league, and he's going to a good school next year. I think he'll get an opportunity. So we think he's got a lot of game, offensive ability, and later in the draft, I think you're looking for guys with a lot of upside, and he has it for sure.
Can we get to some other items? You guys good on that?
I just had the one question.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get down to it a little bit. Stan, you got an update on your coaching staff, including your goaltending coach as well?
No update yet. We have our staff that we've been reviewing over the last few days here, and we're going to continue. I think we'll probably have that sorted out in the coming days, but no announcements on staff yet.
Are they all up? Like, their contract's been all up? Do you have to renew them, everybody?
We do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Chris, going into the last year of his deal, is there any thought to extending him, or are you comfortable with him going into the last year?
Yeah, well, I think Chris has done a fantastic job. I've said that a few times. For sure, want to get something done with him. I think the fact that he's got another year, we've got a lot of other stuff we're going to sort through here, but I do expect to get to that in time.
Is you feeling that Koff wants to come back?
I don't want to handicap that stuff at this point. I think we're gonna work that out probably over the next few days, and we'll have something probably to announce maybe next week this time.
We're a couple days away from July 1st. Is there? You got some pending UFAs. You got some pending RFAs. Have you had a chance to talk to Dave Gagne? Where are we at with the potential extension on an RFA in terms of Evan Bouchard?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Dave earlier, and we've begun the negotiations. So I think that's kind of all I really want to say. Certainly think Bouch is a great player. Had an excellent year. He's a big part of this, and we're going to work through it. Timing-wise, I don't know how long it's going to take. It's two sides, and we're both trying to do what we can. We think makes the most sense. But I think I'm not going to be giving the day-by-day update on the negotiations. It's like anything else. It's a process we go through. But we've had good discussions, and we'll just keep working at it.
There's discussions on long-term, 8 years as opposed to 4 years. Like a lot of these players are thinking they might want to take shorter. Is that in your wheelhouse?
Well, again, we're open to a bunch of different ideas. I don't think you can go into a negotiation with just one position. It makes it much more difficult to get a deal done. I think, there's two sides, and they both have things they want to accomplish. So, I think you have to be willing to listen and have different ideas, and that's what we're doing at this point. It's tough to say where it will end up, but we're not going in with just one idea. We're open-minded.
Connor said after in his year-end availability that he didn't think July 1st was necessarily a deadline that needed to be put out there. Do you have a sense yet on what the timeline looks like to dig into things meaningfully with his camp, and do you have a preference on a timeline to get things really going?
We're very eager to do that. Whenever they're ready. Like I said, when I did my last availability, really, I think Connor's earned the right to choose when he wants to get into the details of it, and we're ready right now. So, he knows that, and he knows that. He's right that the timing, July 1st, is it's a date when we can officially sign a new contract. But besides that, it's really just another date. It doesn't really change the process at all.
I know there's been some initial chatter, but how optimistic are you that you'll be able to extend McDavid?
Well, I can't characterize it because I don't mean that in a bad way. We really haven't talked to him at all about his contract. It's really just been talking about our team and about how we can improve and hit what he sees and that kind of stuff. So the conversations haven't even started as far as a contract.
And last week you said you were evaluating goaltending. A week later, where are you in the evaluation of that?
Well, the evaluation it's not something you do just once or twice and then it's over with. When I say that, I mean looking not only at the goalie the goaltending we have, but also what's out there and options. And so it's going to be a process that we're going to go through. I don't think we're going to come to one decision tomorrow or the next day. It's really taking in the information, and eventually we're going to settle on the thing that we think makes the most sense.
Yeah, there's a pretty significant goaltender that was moved today. That's John Gibson. Where are you in terms of, looking at options available and thinking that there could be something out there that could maybe be an upgrade for you?
Well, but that's part of the process, is not only talking to, talking trades, not just for goaltenders, but that's what's happening the last several days, since we last spoke. That's what I've been doing, is talking to each manager. I've talked to each one multiple times. Part of it was about the draft, but other was about players. And, we did make the one trade with Evander. So when we have those conversations, we talk about all the positions. It's not just a call about goaltending or a call about a forward. So that's going to keep going on. I don't know if I have a specific answer for you, but that's what this is going to be in the next few days, weeks. It's just evaluating how can we do something that's going to make our team better. And when we find that sweet spot that we think makes sense, the price is right, the player's the right player, then we'll move.
Yeah, I guess to be more clear, do you feel like you need to do that? Do you feel like the goaltending is now at a spot where you do need to upgrade?
No, part of the evaluation is, are the guys that we have, does it make the most sense to keep this group? And that's certainly a possibility. So I don't know. We're not at the point where we're saying we're definitely bringing in new goalies.
Depending on how much space you can clear up, I guess, limits what you can or can't do. But where on your priority list would be trying to add a top six forward to skate on that, either the first or second line? Because you had a lot of guys moving in and out of that spot here, maybe not traditional second line players.
It's true, we did. I think it was a little bit of a different year that way if you look at it. And this is why sometimes things don't always play out the way you plan them. I think, a year ago at this time, there was an idea of what the second line would look like. And, we go this year and Leon leads the league in goals when he has probably two wingers. For most of the year, you probably wouldn't expect. Well, he had a bunch of different wingers, actually, and it still led to him leading the league in goals. So sometimes the plans you have in July are not the ones that turn out to work. So I think we have to be open-minded about what that could look like. Getting an established offensive player that can do it would be a great idea. The hardest part in all this is just the fit, because sometimes players have great years elsewhere, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't gel with your group. And that's kind of what happened this past season. I think there were hopes for Skinner and Arvey to be those guys, and they've had really good careers. It just, for whatever reason, didn't come together here with the mixture, or the way that certain players play, or the style that they play might not mesh. And you're never going to know that until you give it a chance. So that's always a challenge when you look at a player who's got good stats elsewhere and you assume they'll do that here. Maybe they won't. So those are all things that you try to mitigate that as much as you can by planning and doing a deep dive. But when it comes down to it, you never know until they get in training camp and you see how they combine with your group.
What's your timeline on trading Arvidsson?
There's no timeline with
It doesn't
that.
have to be before July 1st or anything.
No.
Because they'll free up more money because you carry the money through them.
Yeah, I would say there's really no deadline for that. Had a good chat with Arvey at the end of the year, and it just didn't work out, I think, the way he wanted, and for us either. So we've been talking to some teams. We'll see where that goes, but for right now, he's here. But I think if we can find a spot for him, we'd be willing to do that.
Would you like to bring back, or some of your free agents said you were going to market? Some of you guys said to you, yeah, we're going to market. Connor Brown told you, like, I want to see what's out there, or Perry, or any of those guys?
We've been talking with all those guys, Kapanen, Perry, Connor Brown. Yeah, we've talked to John as well. I think part of it is trying to, if we can get some of those guys signed before July 1st, and it's always a two-way street. It's a combination of what we're able to offer them and what they think what works for them. Some of them may want to see what else they can get, but they could still come back if it's. But I think the big message is we're going to do what we can that makes the most sense for us to give us some flexibility, but also, a lot of those guys had great years. If we can keep them here, we'd like to.
In your discussions with Connor, what are some of the questions he's asking, and what does he kind of want to see going forward?
Just discussions about our team, about how, he's just really driven to win. Like we came close now 2 years in a row. So when you get that close, you want to try to just that extra little bit to win an extra game or two next year. It's not like we don't need an overhaul of our team, and we're very close to being where we want to be, but we're not quite there. So, trying to find, I guess it would be like the incremental small improvements from last year to next year, and I think that things that went well, you want to try to build on that, and the things that weren't as good, you want to try to address that, whether it's with tactics or whether it's with different players. I think those are options. You hope there's some growth from within. I think Matt Savoy's probably poised to take a big step next year. Same thing with, we're hoping Noah Philp could be a player for us in a depth role, and excited for David Tomasek to come over. He's a leading scorer in Europe for 2 years in a row. I think he's got a lot of game. He's not familiar to the fans or maybe to you guys yet, but he brings a unique skill set as a big righty, plays center and plays wing. I think he's going to give us something that we could really use, a boost. He's not a young player, but he's a new player to the NHL. So I think having some new faces from within or within the organization is going to be a nice option as well.
People are always looking for like a big splash. Is that maybe too much to ask, or is it kind of, like you said, incremental little moves around the side?
Well, I think you never want to rule anything out, but I think if you set that as the objective, then sometimes you're chasing something that doesn't ultimately make sense. So we're not opposed to that. We're going to do our work. We've been planning with our group internally, and once we get to July 1st, we can officially talk to free agents. We're gonna do that, certainly. But it's all a function of how much cap space you have, what the term on the deal is, all those things. But not opposed to bringing in like a big name player, but I would say we're not looking at it like we have to do that. You have to sort of take it as it comes and see what makes the most sense.
So you don't have to like get Bouchard signed before you say, okay, here's how much money we've got to go out and get a right winger.
I think we have a pretty good idea on Bouchard, sort of within a fairly tight range. Like
Dobson's contract template.
well, it's certainly. It's the most recently signed defense contract, so there are some relevant factors. They're a little bit different too, but I think that's all part of it. So we've had those conversations. But I think, like I said with Bouch, I think we know generally the range. Like we're still going to try to get to the finish line with them, but that's what the negotiations are for. But it's not like we have no idea what his value is. I think it's pretty close.
Can I
Trent
ask
Frederick.
your philosophy on no moves for players? We see Trent Frederick just got one little bit there. You've got a number of players on the team that were given them last year. What's your philosophy as a GM about when to hand those out, what the reasoning is?
Well, it's balancing the ability to get a player to commit to you. I think it's a competitive environment when you get to UFA. So I think sometimes those clauses get a little bit, they get a lot of attention, but
At trade deadline.
they do. Yeah, that's true. But also, I think so. It certainly it's easier if you don't have them, but I think you have to have a good relationship with your player. And at the end of the day, if a player's not in a role where he's really sees himself and likes it, then typically they want to find another spot anyway. So. I think having more flexibility is always better, but when you're negotiating with free agents, that's one of the points you can negotiate on. And certainly if you're going to give it out, you hope to maybe not give it up for the duration of the deal. Usually if you're signing a long-term deal, the first couple of years, they're going to be there. And that's going to be something you're going to have to give. Maybe more in the tail end, you can get a little more flexibility.
What did you like about Frederick that you committed long-term to him?
Yeah, I thought Freddie was really good in a lot of areas that we're looking for. So, you know, I know we didn't get a chance to see everything because it took him a while to get healthy, and you know, he was still battling to try to get back to feeling like himself. But there's a couple factors. Number one, he's his age. So he's very young. He just turned 27 as a free agent. The biggest thing about Freddie that's appealing, I would say, is his style of play is something that's very difficult to find in the market, both in trade and in free agency. So we looked at, if we decided not to sign him, we really liked the attributes that he has. So we did this internal, you know, exercise where we said we can try to sign him, but let's look at the other way. Let's say we don't sign him. If we don't want to, or we can't get a deal done, then who are we going to get that does what he does? His size, his flexibility to play wing and center. He's still been able to score, even though he's got that intimidation factor, and also the fact that he's one of those guys that gives your team some comfort knowing that nobody's going to take advantage of them. And I think you can be a tough guy, but you have to have it inside you to make the other team know that you're not going to get taken advantage of. It's really more of a disposition as a player, and it's knowing that you're going to let them know that they can't do what they want to do because they're going to have to go through you. And he just has that ability naturally. Nobody needs to kind of whisper in his ear and tell him to make sure guys don't take advantage. That's what makes him who he is. Really hard to find those guys. So when you have a guy that you get a chance to spend some time with him and you realize how popular he was with our group and how he really wants to be here in Edmonton for a long time, it made us feel really good about what he can do. I think his best years are ahead of him here. He's coming into the prime of his career. Obviously, he'll be fully healthy for training camp. Talked to Chris, and even Freddie said he likes to play center, so I think we'll try him there for a bit. I don't know if he'll play there exclusively, but just having that option for him to play, he actually likes right wing a little bit more than left wing or center, so I think we have the ability to move him up the lineup on the right side or left side. So, and I guess I keep coming back to if we decided to pass on him, there's no one else around that's available right now. Teams who have guys that are similar, they're just not available for trade. So I think that's a big part of why we wanted him to be here.
Can I ask you? I would say Evander King probably has some of those attributes too. You mentioned obviously his name a long time ago now, but
Sure.
What went into that trade and taking away a player like that?
You're right. I think that's Evander's been that player really his whole career. I think the biggest difference there is just the age difference. I mean, Evander's he's older, but he played very admirably in the playoffs. I got to give him a lot of credit. I enjoyed getting to know him. He's a competitive guy, and I think really it just came down to more cap flexibility more than anything, and just the fact that Frederick was quite a bit younger, so it gives us more of a longer runway. But I think that element was something that was important in the playoffs for us to getting us where we did, and we think it's important going forward.
Can I ask you about Ekholm's injury situation? How compromised was he to play in the playoffs? Because it didn't look like he was skating like he normally could.
He was totally healthy by the time he came back. I think the biggest thing was just he missed a lot of time, and you know he was, if anything, it was hard to jump into basically the highest level. You're jumping into the Stanley Cup final when you haven't played in a couple months. So I thought he did his best. I mean, he was healthy, but if anything, he just wasn't really maybe as crisp or as sharp because he hadn't played a lot, and everyone else had been playing every other day for 2 months.
You confident that blue line? You said for the most part it's intact for next season. You put some puck movers in there. You wanted to do that. You confident that blue line is a good enough one to start with and ride?
Yeah, I thought our defense played great in the playoffs. I really was excited about that group, and I think even if you look into up until the playoffs, Emerson had a really good season. You know, really established himself as an NHL player, and I expect him to build on that. I think we had a good meeting with Ty at the end of the year, and I think he feels really more confident now than he did walking in last year. He knows he's an NHL player and certainly wants to be a playoff player too, but I think he's ready to take that step. So I think we're going to see a progression from him. He's he's still not even 25 yet, I don't think. So he's got more to his game, and I think Wallman made a real big difference to us. I think we all saw Kulak take a step forward, I thought. He played really well for us all year long, so I think our defense had a great season, and I expect them to be a strength of our team next year.
Do you have any interest in extending those guys, like Ekholm, Wallman, Kulak that are?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably going to get to those type of conversations this summer after we get through the next couple of weeks. But I'm happy with all three of them. I think they all showed value to us. In particular, like Kulak and Wallman can play both sides, which is nice. You don't know how your D is going to look down the road, so that flexibility is good. And Ekholm's been a rock here for a long time, and I think up until he got hurt, he was probably our best defenseman. So all three of those guys would be great, and we'll get to that a little bit later, though.